to the Rick Fuller podcast, presented by Rick Fuller, the team leader of the #1 real estate team in the San Francisco Bay Area and Sac County for most recent sales, according to Zillow. Rick is a national real estate coach, community leader, and business influencer. I'm Christina Morales. I'm a writer, marketer, and Rick and I started these webinars way back when COVID-19 started, how many months ago? And exactly, and our goal is to help people to survive, pivot, and thrive during this unique season. Today, we have an incredibly special guest, Anthony Trucks. Anthony is a former NFL player, motivational speaker, and transformational identity shift coach. If you haven't heard Anthony speak before, you are in for such a treat. Today's topic is shift your thinking to overcome today's obstacles. So welcome, Rick. Welcome, Anthony. I am excited to have you both on the call today.
Thanks, I'm excited to be here.
Anthony, awesome. Great to see you again, buddy.
You too.
So, Rick, how did you meet Anthony, and what do you want our audience to take away from today's call?
Well, that's a great question, Christina. One of our team members was working with Anthony and getting in shape. Anthony had him going in a remarkable direction. He was losing weight. He was toning up, and spoke Anthony's praises around the office. Anthony, what you may not know is that after your coaching and consulting, you were kind of a common name around the office, like you were employed here because he talked about you so regularly.
That's awesome.
I visited Anthony. I was so out of shape that Anthony had me start first thing in the morning. I arrived and he had me run on a treadmill. And it was the longest mile of my life. And Anthony's sitting here, a former NFL player, American Ninja Warrior, watching this guy, overweight, out of shape, do his very best attempt to manage his way for his first mile on a treadmill. And that's where I first connected with Anthony.
Oh, well, why don't you tell everybody where you're at now, Rick? Triathlons, you literally ride your bike more than I drive my car in a week. So why don't you share your mileage for us?
Yeah, I think, Christina, I'm at 600 miles for the month for the last 30 days on the bike. And that all kick-started really from my very first visit, not even able to run a mile on Anthony's treadmill.
Wow. I mean, that says so much about both of you, where Anthony is inspiring you to do more and to get healthy. And Anthony, that says a lot that you could inspire someone to change their whole life to get healthy. So that's awesome. Yeah. Anthony, you have such a unique story that is so inspiring and encouraging. Can you share a little bit about your life, how you shifted your identity to where you came from and where you are now?
Yeah. It's funny is I don't even do fitness anymore. I sold the gym in 2018. I now work with, and I always kind of done this, but I've worked with corporations like Amazon and like Lockheed and then moms and dads and solopreneurs. So in the world of the work I do now, I help people truly figure out and then ascend to their full potential in the realm of identity, which if you guys listen, you're like, what is that? Just pay attention. We're going to teach you something that you've never probably ever heard of before, but promise you're going to get off this call and be like, holy wow, how come I didn't know about this before? And so like my story, identity is this thing that has always become a weird, part of my life I've had to navigate and shift through. And we all deal with it. Like I'm not alone. We all have these different situations, moments. I call them shift moments where life shifts before we know it and we're having to deal with it. We're in it right now for a lot of people. Like the game, the playing field, it completely shifted. And so people are not shifting with shifting times, which is weird because this is like my superpower, like superhero strength. Like I'm great with this. So it goes back to my years when I was a kid. At 3 years old, I was given away into foster care by my mom, and she gave me and my 3 siblings away. And so we dealt with this system that was really difficult. So I already had this first shift of my identity. If I'm a foster kid, getting beaten and starved and tortured as really heinous things as a child. 6 years old, I get put into a family, which is my family now. We're still very poor. I'm the only Black person in an all-white family, grew up in Antioch. And so we had at the time, it wasn't a very diverse area. I got racial slurs at school. So I had this, again, identity instability. My mom, divorces one guy, marries another guy. My dad's only 12 years older than me at this point now. It's interesting because he was young when she kind of married him, and she had me already. It was a very weird dynamic in my household. So we had this go on, and then I was still a foster kid until 14. I wasn't adopted until I was 14 years old. So I spent a lot of years not knowing what my life would be turning into. So when things got good, it got scary because what if this thing that's great leaves me? And so I eventually got adopted at 14. I knew for the first time, this place I woke up, I get to go to bed. It's a very unique sense for me, but I also didn't have the sense of self-worth in the world. And so what I did is I entered this space where I got to do something most people take for granted. I got to hit people and actually get praised for it. It's called football. So football was this thing I started doing, and I loved it. I mean, for me, it was like the sense of like, oh, I feel good because I did this thing and people liked that I did it. Before that, the world like said, oh, you suck. And we all experience this. We do these things and the world's like, oh, you suck at that. So you're like, oh, I don't want to do it anymore. Now, for me, the worst part was I actually sucked at football in the beginning. And so imagine doing something that you really want to do and then being really bad at it. And you're like, why am I going to keep doing this? And this is called life for everybody. We all try things and we're met with the fact that we're not great at it yet. And we have to make a choice of either I lean into it or I lean away from it. So at first I leaned away from it. And I tried again another year. I was still bad, leaned away from it. And I pretty much checked out. At this time, my older brother went to the military. I'm one of 6 of this family here. So he's gone. He's like my rock. My mom gets diagnosed with MS. I'm sucking in football. I pretty much check out. I'm like, I'm just going to do my thing and just be this kid that wastes away. Because I didn't know it at the time. But unfortunately, if you look at statistics for foster kids, 75% of former foster kids are populating the prison system. So 3 in 4 prisoners are former foster kids. Any homeless population, 50+% have spent time in foster care, and less than 1% of foster kids graduate from college. So statistically, I'm not set up. I've got a sick mom. We're poor. I have nothing to show for who I am. I'm checking out, and I get this moment in time where some girl gives me a gift, and the gift we don't all get, but I got this gift. The gift was I got to hear my excuse out loud for why I was checking out. And when you hear your excuse out loud, sometimes it's really stupid. Like Rick, I'm probably sure one of these days you're like, I don't want to work out because my shoes are wet from sweat yesterday. Like, it's a stupid reason, man. Like, I'm gonna get up and run, you know? And so like I heard this excuse. What she said was, well, the reason I'm so bad is because I'm in foster care. I was like, like that can't be the reason I'm a criminal or I'm a bad husband or a bad dad someday. So I just like want to be great. And it started by figuring out, what does that great human being do? Like, what are the things they do that I don't do? And it's that simple. We know what some people do. And the problem is it's super hard. Like the people listening right now, there's things you guys know you're supposed to be doing. And I don't know what that is, but you know that like if you did those things consistently, your life would be amazing. And the problem is you get frustrated because you do it, it sucks. You see somebody else who has success doing it and it looks easy to them. You're like, why is it so easy for them? Why are they so successful? It's not the information, it's who's doing it and how much of a burden does it feel like. When I look at identity, it's like the identity is a big thing for me, because when you are of the identity of the person who does those things, it feels that way. Success is yours, almost like second nature, because everybody's like, well, how do you do that, Rick? Well, how do you not do that? Like, it's just normal to me now, right? But how do you get there is the big thing. And I didn't know what it was for years. And I took years to figure it out. I broke my life along the way, people. That's how we do it, right? So I get, through this whole thing, I could do football stuff and I get way better at football over a year. I just killed myself trying to figure it out. And I started at this point where I had this sense of pride because I'd earned the right through 500 reps a day of catching a football, running routes, lifting weights, all the stuff I could do. So when I showed up the next year, I earned the right for you never to beat me. I earned the right to fight when I had to fight, because I wasn't going to make all the rest of the time I spent be for nothing. And it was this ownership by creating this person. As I tell people, what you create creates you, creates that person. The process of creation gets you there. And sometimes it's creating a better business, creating a better marriage, creating a better body. It's just a process. Because now Rick, like, he could be like, hey, I'm in shape, man. Look at my butt in these tight jeans. But I feel good. Like it's who you are. It's not just this thing I did. That's who I am. I'll defend this, right? And so I got to that point, and it worked in football. And I ended up getting a scholarship 2 years later, got a chance to go to Oregon on a scholarship, played there for 4 years, had my son at 20 years old, met my real dad at 21, new parts of my identity had to be extracted, get to football and the NFL. NFL stands for not for long. So I'm in, and then my 3rd year, I tear my shoulder. I come home trying to figure out who is Ant without football. And that's a hard one. And we've all had these shifts in our identity. My marriage fell apart. I lost my job. I got a great job. I lost somebody that passed away. We all deal with this. And sometimes people dealt with this when they were young, but they haven't really dealt with it. And it's just been festering. And so what happens is I get to this point of like, I don't know who I am without football. And it's a big crisis, a big identity crisis. And so what I did is I got to the point where essentially like I tried to find myself again in this gym, new business. I'm gonna build this gym. So my wife and I have 2 more kids. We got twins now. She was a high school sweetheart. We had a kid, obviously at 20, had a couple more kids. We're married. And then now I'm at this gym from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. I don't know what I'm doing because business is not easy. I've been extracted from the world for so long, and I jumped in with 2 feet and all my body, and I was drowning. And my marriage fell apart eventually. My wife had an affair because I was neglecting. I was gone all day. She had no husband and twins, right? Craziness. My business was tanking. 9 months in, I was getting served with eviction papers. My body was out of shape. I didn't have football. Like I was a bad dad. And it just all kind of came tumbling down. I got to this point where I legitimately wanted to take my life. Like I was like, I don't want to be here. If this is what life is post football, like I don't want to do this. Like this isn't something that's going to be fun for like, I got to endure this I'm 30. I want to do this for the next like 40 years. Like, no, I can't. So I want to check out. And thankfully I didn't, but I had this waking up moment of like, somebody kind of like snapped me into like, like Aunt, when you kind of drove off that night. Cause I drove off and he's like, when you drove off, I thought I lost a hero. I was like, well, what do you mean? I said, but I got played football with, and I was in high school. He was an employee of mine at the gym. Like, what do you mean a hero? He's like, the life you've lived, who you've become past all the craziness, we see that. He's like, that's, you may not realize it, but you're an inspiration to a lot of people. And so I had the seed plan at the time of like, well, what if all that craziness up to that point was like useful to somebody? What if the stuff I'd gone through could help somebody? Now I wasn't in the place to start helping people. Obviously, like the time you're trying to teach someone to swim is not when you're drowning. So I wasn't trying to do that. I had to fix my life, and I was still in a fog for like a couple more years, man. I got divorced. I blamed it on her. I started hanging out and late nights and doing the Playboy thing, and the gym was up and down for years. It just was not this life I like living. And then in 2014, my mom passed away. I was in the room and I held her hand, and she was like literally took her last breaths. It was very, very morbid and very difficult like to experience. But there was this thought of like, man, this person who didn't have to keep me, like unconditionally loved me in a crazy way. Like she loved me past my crazy. I tried to get out of it. I tried to be so bad she'd give me away. But she just loved me past it. Like it was weird. And so like I was sitting there thinking the reason I'm not a statistic is because of her. But like her body ripped her ability to have potential reached from her. So it sucked. And I was like, man, what can I do for my life to do something? And I started looking at like, what if I water that seed my buddy had planted years ago, like 3 years before? And so I started thinking like, how do I become better? How do I learn from this, grow from this? And this is what kind of led me into the work I do now. And I realized like that I kind of, like all of us are kind of like computers. And computers I'm on one now. The update comes in. Hey, you should do this. You're like, snooze. I don't got time for this right now. Hey, you should update this. And I snooze. So if we don't update the computer, what happens? Eventually the programs stop running, right? The Zoom bogs down. The Wi-Fi starts to drop, and I can't get my Chrome to come up anymore. And so the computer starts crashing. We can open in safe mode, but everything's pushed to the side. And like, I'm trying to get things done, but it's not fully functional. And then what you do is you stop and say, all right, I'm going to download what's going on, upload the new software, then things start running. But it takes time and it's just difficult. And so what I found is like, that's what I had to do for my life. So when I was going into my life, we all have to do this. I had to step in and say, all right, the programs, my health, my relationships, my parenting, my business, the programs, they were getting a spinning wheel of death. They were all up and down. And the thing I had to do was like a couple years later, because here's the thing, I didn't quickly change. It takes time. This is 2 years later, I finally got to this moment, and I was sitting there, and I'm a man of faith, and I'd gotten so far from my faith in the middle of this because of the things my wife had done to me. It was all her fault, and my family. It was crazy. And I remember I woke up January 1st, 2016, and I had this woman who had flown out from Russia, didn't even speak English in my bed. And you'd think like, oh, Playboy, he's got these girls. And I was like, man, I'm disgusted with me. I'm not a good dad. If my son saw this, I'd be disgusted at how he'd see me. I would never want my kids to be this guy. My God doesn't approve of this. And if my mom ever saw this, like I'm getting chills thinking about it now, like she would be so distraught with who I've turned into. And I cut everything off. I was like, I got to find a way to figure this out. And this is where, for me, the downloads kind of came in. I sat in a chair and I was like, all right, all the problems in your life, you're the common denominator. All of us are. Like the things that go on, we're all the common denominator.
So good.
I was like, and it's hard to figure this thing out. And I was like, all right, let me see, like where was the issue with the relationship? Well, she made a really crappy choice, but she didn't get there alone. It took me and her to get to a point where she felt that she even needed to make a choice in the first place. I was spending more time with other people's kids than my own kids. My business wasn't doing well because I had an ego of like, I got this, I'm the greatest, right? And just wasn't, the things weren't in place. And so I got closer to my God. And I started downloading the things that needed to be downloaded about why I was where I was at and what needed to be done. And I started uploading the actions into my life, had hard conversation with my best friends, my family, my ex-wife, the person she had an affair with, my children, like these really tough conversations. And I started, like, my life started to get spinning in the right direction. And so, 9 months later from this moment, I get back with my ex-wife. We're now together. We were divorced for 3 years, custody battle, craziness. We're now 4.5-ish years back together in an amazing God-centered marriage. My kids have their dad. My businesses run smooth. I'm healthy. And now I get to teach other people this process, because what I went through, in fact, is a process. And I'll gladly tell you guys about it here so you can take it away and be like, oh, let me try to do that. Because you can do this stuff. And so when I got to that point, I realized I was just upgrading my identity. It was an upgrade and shifting into what's called my ideal identity for the dream I had. I wanted to be a good husband. I wanted to be a good father. I wanted to be a good business owner, a good coach. And I needed to learn how to do it myself. I had to cross the finish line before I could turn around and tell somebody how to run that race. And so I've crossed these finish lines, and now I get to do a lot of cool stuff. And a lot of it boiled down to me doing the work to download, to upload, get out of safe mode, because we'll do safe mode too. Cut everybody off and I'll just figure it out on my own. That don't work. You can only do it for so long. But when you update it, programs run smooth. And I don't snooze the buttons of life anymore. Like I don't on my computer. I don't snooze the buttons of life. My wife's like, hey, you need to start putting the laptop down earlier. I got you. Okay, cool. My kid's like, hey, Dad, you missed your workout today. Yeah, okay. I got to get the workout in. Hey, why are you eating? It's 12 o'clock. Why are you eating cereal? Oh, you're right. Okay. Right. So these are updates that happen in life, and I don't snooze them anymore. I'm like, I let them download, and I do the work that needs to be done. And so this is essentially how I teach people to craft this. And so that's my story. And that's kind of how I got into this work. And really at the end of the day, I get to work with some incredible people, like people that oversee large parts of countries. Like I get to work with. It's very interesting, because this stuff it's not rocket science. It is difficult. It is a process though, but everybody has the possibility and opportunity to do this. And so when you learn how to do it, it creates so many more doors for people to step into.
You know, what I love about this story, this is not a story that occurred 30 years ago or 40 years ago or 50. We're talking 5 years ago, Anthony, like this major life conversion begins to occur in your life. And you think about the inspiration that you've been to so many people. It's just been remarkable. And you really don't know what's happening in somebody's life. When you and I met originally, you were going through a lot of this stuff, right? And you don't know what's happening in people's lives. You think they're successful. You think everything's going fine. You think everything's just, everything's happening just as they had planned. And nothing could be further from the truth. And being a person of faith myself, I learned that, the ultimate identity is really found both in who you are and then whose you are. And when you begin to get that understanding in life, things begin to start to make sense. And having the right people along the way that can kind of guide you through that process, like you're doing for so many, it's life-changing. And it becomes your transformation point can become a transformation point for somebody else that needs to hear your story. So I love that. Thank you for sharing it. We've had the privilege, and you've been a part of this, working with Royal Family Kids, the camp for foster kids for over 20 years. Thousands of kids have been to this program. And what I've come to the conclusion is the lowest common denominator is exactly what you're talking about. What the kids need is identity. They need to know who they are and where they belong. And that's the starting point. There's a lot of other tools and techniques and attributes that they need to learn. But when we boil it down to the lowest common denominator, it starts with who they are and where they belong. Now, once they have that, you can begin to build.
Yeah. And it's funny is that, for all of us, that was done unintentionally when we were children. Everybody listening right now, they're probably, sometimes the stuff gets to people. They're like, oh, this is just some, esoteric, weird, this is thoughts. And I'm like, all right, well, let's put it this way. When you were a kid, somebody at some point in time taught you where you saw like what love is, what relationships are, what a job is, what happiness, what health is. We had this stuff programmed. What kind of food is food, where religion stands, because of what was ever programmed into you. And then what you did is you started running your life from that for years. Like sometimes it's up at like 15, 16, it locks in place, sometimes earlier. And I'm running my life this way. And you get to the back end of your life and go, why in the world am I not having the joy and happiness that I thought I would? Why am I not as far as I thought I would be right now? Well, because you're like in 2020 running Windows 95 for your life. And so it's like, and this is legitimate with like, there's 6 core drivers of our identity that create that ideal identity. When you look at those, you can be like, oh, That's why I react and act and operate that way, because I have this belief or this thought or this habit. And when you start understanding that those are usually programmed when we were kids, you can say, okay, I'm going to now intentionally reprogram. I'm going to update that operating software so that this is no longer an issue in my life. And this is who I get to live as for the rest of my life.
Mhm.
Powerful.
So do you think most people don't know that, are they in denial about their thought process, or do they not have the tools to get healthy, to have a healthy identity?
Oh, we got the tools, man. There's no shortage of information nowadays. If somebody is not having success, it is on them. Now, it doesn't mean that they know exactly what to do. There's different levels. I tell people you have to own your shift. It essentially means I have to own there's something to work on, which some people know. Then it's your responsibility to do it. Then you have to do the shift work. The problem is a lot of people that know there's something to work on and they know it's on them, but they don't know what to do. Like, I don't know how to shift. What does that mean? And I think the thing is people think change. But change is heavy. Like the thought of like change who you are, like that's a heavy one, Ant. And it doesn't have to be that way. If you think about a plane traveling legitimately from San Francisco to, let's say you want to go to, Orlando, Florida. If you take that plane and you go 1 degree shift south, you're going to end up in Lakeland, Florida, 40 miles away. So if we're going to a destination in our life, we're going to end up somewhere a year from now. We're going there. You don't have to make this whole change. You need 1 degree. It's shifting sometimes small nuances for how you do stuff, and it puts it in a new trajectory. And so when you ask, do people not know? Like some genuinely don't know what to do. So they just keep getting up, and the evil we know is better than the evil we don't. I know this one. I don't like it. I'm just going to deal with it. But I'm like, don't have any evil. Like, let's get rid of all the evil, right? Let's just figure out what we got to do better. And there is a process. Like, there's a way you can go back and do this. And sometimes the hard part is everyone's greatest obstacle, ego, your ego. It's getting in and saying, like, I could have easily for years been that guy that never sat in the couch, that woke up that morning next to that woman and been like, I feel like crap. No, it's whatever. It's everybody else's fault.
Right.
Like, no, I had to sit and like, all right, I had to pull the ego back. Former NFL athlete. My biggest problem was my ego. I promise you, I thought I was this amazing dude. And it wasn't the case. My life was showing me that. And for a lot of people, we consider and think in our great moments on Instagram and the car we drive that we're great. But we know, like in your dark moments, now. And if you keep avoiding that human, then it's going to be a problem. Because here's the thing. One of the telltale signs for a lot of people are those who are not good alone. Like if you find somebody who is not able to be by themselves, there's 100% something going on they're not talking about. So are they out partying? Are they with friends? They always have to they have to call a buddy so they're not alone. The reason is because you're always with somebody. But if you're with somebody you don't like, you try to find other people to be around. And for me, I didn't like this guy, so I didn't do well being alone with this guy. So I distracted myself by drinking beers, by hanging out with buddies, with being with women, always with somebody. And I realized, like, man, I really got to get to the point of dropping the ego and realizing, like, I don't like this guy, but I can change this guy. And so that was the first step, was just me dropping the ego and giving myself permission to improve. Once the ego subsides, you give yourself permission to improve.
Mhm.
Anthony, I'm curious to get your thought on this. We live in a generation where there is an abundance of information.
Mm-hmm.
Too much, so much so that it's almost paralyzing. You pick a topic, you Google it, you put it on YouTube, whatever, and there is such ample information about it that there's not a book, not a video, not a audio, not a podcast, but that there's so much information that we become people that are cluttered. We become people that are distracted, and there's a lack of focus. And a great coach takes the right piece of information at the right time for that person and applies it to their life. And now you begin to see life change. And it's less about having all the answers, and it's more about saying, this is the answer that you need for this particular point in time in your life. Do you find that to be the case?
Oh yeah. There's a statement is knowledge becomes noise.
Yeah.
We all get it. There's a ton of it. And the problem is like you said, we don't know what to do with it. People are hearing this right now, like, what do I do with this? Like, that's the simple thing. And the problem is you can do anything, but you cannot do everything.
That's right.
So you got to find out what those things are you should do. And it is different for everybody. And you got to find a coach. Like I played the highest level in the world at my sport, and I needed a coach. And people think it's like, oh, if I get a coach, that means there's something wrong with me and I'm broken. No. My coach could not play the sport the way I could play it, but he could see the field. So you need someone that sees the field of your life, like sees your relationship, how it really is, sees things and can poke and prod and give you some direction and, hey, adjust your energy. There's people that coach me that do not have the same success as me, but they are great at seeing things I can't see. And I respect them enough to listen. And so for me, it's like, yeah, you got to find some people. And maybe it's not a coach. It could be a buddy you hang out with. It could be a just accountability partner. Someone who will, one, help you clarify the direction you got to go. And then two, keep you accountable so you don't jump off that path. Because we all got that shiny object syndrome, a lot of us. It's the idea is like, how do I stay that course I set out to stay on when I set out to stay on it? And it's usually, we'll do something. We'll set our sights for something. But we get to this point of like emotion tears us off of it. Like usually we made a choice in a non-emotional, logical state. We sat at our desk, planned this and plotted this out. And then all of a sudden something came in that was good or bad, and it spiked our emotion. When emotion's high, intelligence is low. And now I just started making these decisions and I'm like, oh, why did I get off track? I shouldn't have. Oh, and then now I feel bad because I got off track and I don't go back on track, and it just spins up into craziness. And so, yeah, I mean, long answer to your short question, but I think, yeah, you definitely got to have somebody that helps you stay clean, stay clarified, stay on path. To be honest, a lot of the time when I work with my clients, there's a point where it gets to just being tedious and consistent, which is what I want. I want it to be so tedious and consistent for you to be this person, because that's what creates the greatness for your life. You spend more time on the journey climbing the mountain you do at the peak of the mountain. But if you never get used to the journey, you're never going to make it to the peak. So for me, it's like, how do I get you to plan in the beginning? We plan, and then now it's going to be this consistency that is just, it's tedious, but you get used to it and it becomes normalcy, and now it becomes who you are, and now it becomes a second thought, but you still do these things. And now, lo and behold, you're successful. How'd you become so successful? I don't know. I just did these things, like but a coach does that for you.
And then they begin to say, well, you're an overnight success. Well, you weren't there when it was tedious, when it was difficult, when it was challenging, when I started earlier and I finished later than everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
What I found, Anthony, is that this idea of multitasking in the world we live in right now, I mean, there is so much happening. There's so many things that are buzzing. Since we've been on this call, my phone's gone off a dozen times, right? Instagram, Facebook, emails, text, messaging, whatever. And that distraction, it's like what you referred to as the computer. It's like having so many windows open at the same time, and you just cannot process nearly as quickly when you got all these tabs open. And there's a value of closing all those tabs, getting laser focused, because you're not
100%.
multitasking at all. Really, you're multi-shifting. You're really moving from one task to another. And when we do that, we all get bogged down.
Yeah, no progress.
Yep, and a great coach can begin to help you identify what those things are and how to create that laser focus.
Yeah, and most of the best coaches are the ones that have processes that they've tried, they've tested, that just go. And the thing is, sometimes you may not even know what you're doing, but you got to trust the process. And then you find at the back of the process, oh, it works. But if you never go down a path, you'll never get to the destination. So yeah, there's a lot going on. There's a lot of craziness. And sometimes it means you just have to cut some things off and trust the person leading you, or trust the process that you purchased or you bought out of the book, and do it. That's it. Like you got to just do that thing. Like people are like, what's the best diet? The one that you stick to. Like that's the one, right? That's what's best for you. And so a lot of the time it's like, it's great to have the best process and the best, adherence to it. But a lot of it's having the process down. Like even the coaching I do, I don't wing it. I was talking earlier, like people, they can trust me in my life and trust the results, but what you really have to trust is the process. Like I developed this process that ties in my life, neuroscience and psychology, and the actions and processes. And I spent $20,000 just on like having a full out like course structured for my brain. Like here's the teaching back and forth. Here's the PDFs. Here's the videos. Directors came in, site was built, everything. Cause I wanted to make sure that it was not something that was stuck in my head, but now out of my head and repeatable for people. But that's what I lean on. That's what gets the success. And now as a coach, I just coach you to stay on that. Like I played football. Like we didn't make plays up on the field. There's a play. My coach made sure I did my job in the play every single time. He didn't change the play up every day. He didn't let me change the play up. That's not what we do. Yeah, that worked better. No. It may have that time, but I'm telling you, in the long run, we do that again. It's not going to work that way. They just didn't catch the hole. So you get used to running that thing, and a coach just keeps you on that play.
I love a quote that you said. I was listening to some of your previous podcasts, and one of the quotes that you said, I think it was on your podcast with Hal Elrod, and you said, your physiology changes your psychology.
Oh yeah.
Which goes along, it's the science of like start moving in the right direction, and you begin to start thinking in the right direction. Like you got to move,
Mm-hmm.
and you
What
got to
sparks
move
up?
in the right direction. Yeah.
There's a good book called Spark by Dr. John Rady, and it's over here. I'll show it to you real quick. Hold on. Good book. This is the book, right? Dr. John R. Rady. And so what it talks about is legitimately, most people don't realize this, but your brain, like your body is not made to carry your brain around like most people think. Like it's actually supposed to fuel this body, its brain. And so what happens is you have this thing in your body called brain-derived neurotrophic factor, BDNF. And when you exercise, post-exercise, as a BDNF is a brain protein that in fact kind of like the let's call it the different parts of your brain, a lot of the different, synapses and connections and neurons. That's kind of like a highway. The BDNF builds that highway and then maintains the highway. Serotonin, dopamine, norepinephrine, right? It maintains it. So post workout, not only are you like more alert, but you can learn more, you can process better, you can do things. So in fact, exercising, and I don't mean like do a CrossFit exercise like anybody else does and puke. Like I'm just whatever's better for you is what you need to do. But in doing so, in fact, it does affect the brain chemicals. The brain chemicals affect your psychology. They affect also how you feel about yourself. Because when you get in that workout and you're riding that Peloton, you're riding that bike, and then Robin's like, you better go fast. You're like, I am going fast. When you get done, you get off that bike, you look at your thing, you're like, oh, I'm amazing. So you go to your sales calls feeling amazing. You go to your workouts and your family time, amazing. But if you did that thing and she's like, go harder, you're like, I don't feel like it. You get off, you don't feel amazing. And the sales calls are worse. The conversations are worse. And so it's those little things where not only does it help with the physiology of the brain, but it also helps the psychology of how you feel about yourself. Like we're all trying to build up this like sense of like, I'm dope. We all want that feeling. You have to earn that feeling. You can't just believe in yourself because you think you want to. You have to do things in the dark to allow yourself in the light to believe yourself. It's like when I played football, the reason I came that next year an animal was not because I thought about throwing a football. I thought about lifting weights. I did it when nobody else was. So when I showed up to my life, you didn't have the right to take this from me. I am catching that ball. I am making that tackle. You are not going to tackle me. You're not going to catch that ball. Like I earned this when you weren't working. It's the same thing for everybody else's life. And if you don't do those things in the dark, they don't show up in your life. But if you do, like the physical nature, all these things physically, like it leads to strong psychology. That's the quickest way because it's so intimate to see an immediate change. Like when you start working out, Rick, you start feeling good about yourself, man. You show up a little better, you walk into a room, feel a little brighter. And so it's like, you don't have to do crazy workouts. You just have to do a workout, feel better. And it does adjust everything from how you approach your life. And how you approach your life creates your outcomes. The outcomes create your environment. Your environment internally, how you feel about yourself and what you're living in, helps anchor down your identity. And it's a cycle that keeps rolling. But the beauty is you can come in and take a big action, feel good about yourself, and get that thing spinning in a great direction.
In other words, you're just putting one step ahead of another.
That's how it works.
Success, it begets another success.
Yeah.
And if you have failure, you tend to have another failure that follows right behind it. And so starting that physiology then begins to create that psychology. I love that concept because it really does start with, we got to move. We got to know the direction we're heading in and start moving in that direction.
Yeah, stay the course. Know why you're going, know your North Star. But there's a lot of things that dial in. But yeah, psychologically, man, to be honest, I could give you guys a bunch of frameworks and processes, but it boils down to what are you creating that's creating you? Like, what are you creating? Like, because like Michelangelo made David, right? Like, it wasn't like he woke up one day and like chiseled it out like, easy. I'm sure his hands cramped. The weather sucked. Some days he didn't want to do it. He made a mistake. Like but the creation process is dirty and ugly and arduous. But dang, if you didn't get the backside of that and say, I'm one of the best sculptors in the world, right? But it's the process of creation. So it is one foot in front of the other, but creation is not easy. Like, but when you get back to the point of like looking at it, like that's who you are now.
Yeah. Great point.
Well, right now, like during COVID-19, people are home. I'm on social media a lot, and you hear people saying, I don't know what to think. You hear all these different voices and noise. What are you telling your clients who are confused, who are feeling unsettled? What can we do at home to stay physically, mentally, spiritually healthy?
Do a lot of drugs. No, I'm just kidding, man. I'm just super joking.
No, live, Rick.
Yeah. No, here's my process. And this is literally what I do. I don't like to reinvent the wheel. I don't like to get people lost in all this craziness, but there's 3 stages we go through. It's called the shift method. It is the root foundation core of my work. You ain't got to trust me, but trust this thing. And what it does, it allows you to understand how to make this identity shift from the person you are to your ideal identity. Who has the things you want? That's all we're trying to do. Close what I call your identity gap. That's the gap. And so how do I become this person? It was a process of creation. That's the vehicle going up this thing. It's a shift method. So stage one was 3 stages: see, shift, sustain. Most people go to the shift stage really quickly. And this is the person who burns themselves out, but has nothing to show for it. I've worked and worked and worked, but I got nothing to show for it. What? I've done all the stuff. I've been in, right? I did all these things. And the reality is, I think my pastor said this years ago. He said, it's kind of like climbing this ladder. You get to the top of the ladder and realize it's leaned against the wrong building. All this work, wrong direction, right? And so we do this. A lot of us do this all the time. We're doing this. Some people are doing it now. They're just doing things because somebody said to do this thing. So I'm writing this thing because so-and-so. And you can get a lot of information, but if you don't execute or execute correctly, you still end up broken inside. So the first stage of this is the one that's very simple, but so difficult. The C stage. I did this years ago. I have to see why in the world I'm here. How did I get stuck here? What was I doing? Like, see, and this is the ego pulling back. And there are processes and exercises I do to do this that use ourselves, that use external people in our lives. But essentially, like, I want you got to dig in and figure out, what are the things that I got to work on? Like, honestly, do I got to work on? Where can I give myself permission to improve that I never have done in the past? Is it going to be in a relationship area that's affecting my work? Is it a place in my work that's affecting my relationship? What are these things, right? Where do I have to, where's my health being affected? Where am I making bad excuses? Where can my parenting be better? Where can I be closer to my faith? Where does this stuff really got to show up? And once I get to this point of grasping, like, oh, okay, that's what I got to do. Now you start the shift work. And the shift work is based on 4 stages. But what we do is we say, okay, I saw this. Now I'm going to shift. What you do is design your ideal identity. And we have this process and these core drivers we go through. Develop a plan around how I'm going to get this to come to life, which is usually boiling down to actions, reactions, and habits. What's the plan for how I'm going to take big actions or consistent habitual actions? What are going to be my reactions when things go good or go bad? Because that's a big piece of it. You can't just think about the actions. What are your reactions? And what are the habits, the ongoing things I'm going to actually ingrain in my life? And then I have this plan. Now I got to deploy it. A lot of people do vision boards and they feel great when that vision board's made. Like, oh, look, I'm going to have $1 million in 5 days. Like, right? But then they sit back and the vision board never comes to life. Why didn't it come to life? We didn't deploy it into the world. It was too scary. I didn't know if I should post the video because who am I to post a video? Who am I to make a podcast? Who am I to say I'm great at this? I didn't push real hard because I didn't know if I really could do what I said I could do. And so I know my boss is saying to say this, but I don't feel comfortable. I have imposter syndrome. They don't deploy it. Therefore, nothing ever comes to fruition. And then if they do deploy it, here's what happens. I go out, I do the thing. I get slapped in the face by life. You suck. I did this. It all happens. And a lot of people, they will then feel it's like a 10 of pain out of 10 of 10 of pain. If we go 1 to 0, it's 10 of pain. I say, I don't like how that felt. I'm not doing that again. I'm going to procrastinate. I'm going to make an excuse. I don't want to do that again. So what we do is we tuck away and then we never debrief and we never learn why it didn't work. We never even face it again. And if we do it 6 months later, and I don't even know why it went wrong the first time. Those who are smart, they deploy. They get that slap in the face, 10 of 10 of pain. They say, this sucked. What went wrong? They debrief. This went wrong. Change. Okay, all right, let's go do it. And they go back, they redesign, redevelop, redeploy. But here's the crazy thing. You don't go in and fix it. It's not going to be a 0. It's like a 9. It still hurts, but it's a 9 of pain. And they do it again. And it's an 8, and it's a 7, it's a 6, and it's a 0 at some point. But it's not the absence of pain anymore. It's the emplacement of joy. This thing I hated doing, I love doing it, right? There's probably a little bit of fear in this podcast starting, like, let's see, I don't know what's going to happen. Now it's like, I get cool people on, I get this guy, Anthony Trucks, let's talk, right? There's joy in doing it. And it was the creation. That is literally like what you create creates you. The creation process, a 10, a 9, an 8, and it's a 0. And then I love doing this thing because I went out and I designed it, I developed it, I deployed it, I debriefed, I learned, I went back and did it again, and it sucked. Then I got better. Now people are like, how did you do that? Hey, you can do it too, right? And the last piece of it is I sustain. You talked about earlier the people around you. Sustainability is not something that's a solo job, right? There's 3 levels: drive, hive, and thrive. Am I driving the right direction? Am I tracking my progress? Am I still checking in to see, do I have the drive to do this? Hive, do I have the people around me like a hive of bees? You need multiple bees to create sweet honey. Life should be sweet like honey. I need the people in my corner who are the ones that help this hive be sweet and make great honey. It's not just cutting people off. It's unconfidently asking people to join. How do I find those people? Like, hey, I got this dream. I don't know if it's going to work, but I'd love to have you on with it. And, you know, like, that's scary to ask, just as hard as it is to ask somebody to leave your life and then thrive. I'm really big on, once I get to a certain level, like, I want to give this back to people, because that's what stretches me to figure out who I am. So like, thriving is like, once you've done well, it's like, for example, if I have like 10 hamburgers, marginal utility, marginal return, right? If I have 10 hamburgers and I'm hungry, by hamburger 3, I'm full. I don't want any more hamburgers. How do I feel good again? I give the other 7 to people who are hungry.
So
And I feel good about myself, right? And so the idea is this whole thing I told you, the circle. Once you get to the point of realizing, like, I want to do this, now I got to realize, who's the person that does this thing? Maybe I was here and I got to here. I'm like, okay, cool. But I want to be able to give back and do more. How come I'm not yet? I got to go in and see. And then I got to go the process of shifting again, so I can get to that point of sustaining. And it's just a consistent, it's like kicking a ball, running up to it, kicking a ball, running up to it. That's constantly how I live life and how I teach people, but it's not haphazard. And someone who's sitting at home, like, what do I do now? Start with looking at yourself in a mirror and being really honest of working to give yourself permission to improve you never had before. How can you go and architect your ideal identity and start doing the work to shift into it over time? And then how do you sustain that so eventually you can give it back?
I love that. And I'll tell you, one of the things I like about that is that there's the myth that when you, as Anthony said, you hit that 10 of 10, that pain threshold, I mean, you've hit it. And it's inevitable. Everything that you do that's new, that's starting out, like it's inevitable you're going to get some resistance and it's going to be painful. Mm-hmm. And well, I love what Anthony's saying, because you are not a failure. You may have an event that's a failure, but you are not a failure. Don't give up on it. Go back, and it gets easier and easier and easier and easier, mm-hmm. to the point that it becomes who you are and what you're doing, and you're able to help others along the way. I think about my kids when they were young, and Anthony's, you've got 3 kids, Anthony, right? 2 twins, mm-hmm. and I think a 16-year-old, if my memory serves correctly.
Right about, yeah.
And I think of my kids when they were young, they'd say, Dad, I don't want to eat my vegetables. What does wanting to eat your vegetables have anything at all to do with you eating your vegetables? You're going to eat your vegetables because that's just what we do.
Yeah.
Not because you like them. And later on in life, we begin to like eating our vegetables. And it's mm-hmm. a part of just that process of saying, I'm going to eat my vegetables, not because I like them, because that's what I need to do. And it'll mm-hmm. get easier as you do it.
So I say you are what you do eventually. Like, that's really creative. You are what you do, not what you say you'll do, but what you actually do.
Yeah. You know, another translation of that, you'll know them by their fruit, right? Like, hey, that's the fruit that they produce in their life, and you'll know them by their fruit.
Yeah, it's big. It's funny you say that. I have a metaphor I try to explain to people, because whenever we have these moments, to be honest, there's people in here right now who have lost loved ones, lost relationships, have lost their jobs. Even this COVID thing's hit. And the reality that I run into with a lot of my clients we start with is like, they're like, I lost everything. I can't, I'm done. And it's like the fruit of the tree just fell off and it withered and died. And that's how I felt years ago. And what I realized for a lot of years, like, yeah, you feel like when the fruit falls off, this thing you created, like, it falls off and it's like it dies. You feel like you died. But then what really struck me was I was like, oh, wait, I'm not the fruit. I'm the tree.
That's right.
I created the fruit. And so if I go back and learn to give nutrients to the roots and to prune the branches, like, I can create more and better fruit. So I found that football was not the pinnacle. It was just one of the pieces of fruit. But when I started nurturing the tree again, I produced more abundant and sweeter fruit.
Mm-hmm. And Anthony, I went on your website, and I'm not going to lie, I did your slow and go test, and I did not do very well on it. Can you tell us a little bit about finding your identity through using this process, and how to succeed, how to reach your potential?
100%. That's my thing, man. I'm trying to find out how can I reach my full potential and then bring people along with me, right? And so the slower go quiz, which you're talking about, and it's actually based on what's called the slower go grid. And so that's really based on you going and seeing where you fit. And I'll give you guys kind of the structure of what it is. And those of you guys are watching, feel free to go check it out, do it yourself, and see kind of what it is that you could say is your current identity and how to shift out of that to get to what's the higher level, right? So what you have is there's opportunity and opposition in life. They intersect all the time. How do I handle opportunity? How do I handle opposition throughout life? You either go hard, you go, or you slow down when things happen. If it's opportunity, I slow down when opportunities come in because I'm scared. Like, what if it goes wrong? What happens, right? So I slow down. Opposition, I can slow down also because it's hard. I shut down. Or do I tackle opposition and go hard with it, right? Or do I jump on opportunity? And they always intersect and create kind of who we are. And so what's called a slow soul identity, or what I call a dreamer, is someone who has a big dream, but they don't take on opportunity well. They slow down because they're scared of it, and they don't handle opposition well because they shut down. And that's just a tough place to be, because you'll dream about a lot of things, but we'll fail to actually achieve them. And we'll go through our life this way, and it sucks. Then you have someone who goes very hard in opposition, but very slow in opportunity, which means like that's a person is what I call a defender. What they're saying is, I don't want to go after an opportunity because I've already built some cool things. What if something takes away from what I've already made? The undefeated boxer, the person who's, always had a great business. I don't want to try that because what if it goes wrong? It'll mess me up, right? So what they do is they defend, because they will very quickly protect what they've got, but never grow it. They get stuck, they get stagnant, and they waste their potential. Then you get a person who goes very, very hard in opportunity, slow in opposition. Anytime an opportunity pops up, I'm doing it. Let's go. And then a problem arises and they go, oh man, I suck. The failure shuts me down. This is a person I call a dabbler. Shiny object syndrome. They're dabbling in things, trying something. This doesn't feel good. I'm going to try this. I lost something. Didn't feel good. And they keep bouncing around, never make progress. Then you have someone who's what I call a go-go. And the go-go is a person that we're all trying to be. Essentially, is a person that says, what opportunity comes in, I'm going to jump on it, because when opposition comes in, I'm going to tackle it. And it's a different mentality for how I approach life. And a lot of people right now sit here and honestly be like, I'm going to go. Well, why don't you have everything you want? Why aren't you making all the money you said you could? And so I realized there's actually levels to this also. There's 5 levels. We'll break them down real quick because I know we only got a bunch of time. But you have 5 levels of what a go-go is. The first level is called a walker, like someone is just walking. We're all going from California to Florida. We can walk to get there. We're all going to get this new secret to something that's in Florida. We can walk to get there, but we're self-powered. We have to stop at different places. We get tired quickly. We're just self-made. These are the self-made people. Those who really want to be self-made, they don't seek insight, information, no coaching. It takes forever. They'll probably die on the way getting there or never arrive, right? And so what happens is that person is just kind of stuck by being themselves, egos riding and driving them. Then you got a person, a writer. They say, you know what? I need a little bit of outside, help to help powering, right? So maybe I'll go ahead and I'll watch a YouTube video, and I maybe I'll just watch this free thing. No investment, maybe I just bought a little bike and they're riding along, still self-powered. They can ride it. They can go faster, but they're really not going to get there. It's going to take forever to ride to Florida. Then you got a person that says, you know what? I'm a driver. I'm going to get in a car, which means I'm going to invest a little bit of money, maybe some time, and get a driver's license to learn what I got to do to get there faster. And I'm going to get there eventually, right? This is a person that says, I'm going to buy that course. I'm going to buy that book. I'm going to make a bigger investment of time and money to be able to get to that place faster. But you still have roadblocks, stop signs, freeways, detours, because things happen in life and I don't know how to get around this very much. Then you got people that are what I call pilots. These are the people that say, all right, I'm going to invest a little bit more. A real pilot has to invest more in an airplane, invest more in their license to get it right. This is the person who says, I'm going to join a coaching program, a mastermind. I'm going to get help and insight. I'm going to get to the point where I can rise above and I remove the roadblocks and stop signs. I'm flying through the air because I got a coach or I got a group or I got people to lean on. Those roadblocks that would stop me, I don't get stuck anymore. I'm flying. I'm going to get to Florida way faster than you are. Now, some people are Cessnas, some are F-45 fighter jets, some are stealth. They just roll and they're going, right? There's different speeds of that. And people can gauge. It's like, what's the investment you make, right? What's the time you spend? But then you got people who are far and above, like your Oprahs, your Rocks, your Richard Branson. Like, who are these people? Well, these are the people that I call astronauts. They're looking at you guys going to Florida, me going to Florida, because I'm a pilot right now. I'm going to Florida saying, hey, you're going to Florida for that information, but I see something in the UK. I'm looking over at Australia. I'm in outer space seeing more than you can see. And they operate at a different level. If you think about it, every one of these levels gets higher and higher and higher off the ground. And that's kind of how I look at people who are in that stage of go-go. It's like, let's be honest. You can sit here and tell me like, I'm a go-go and protect your identity. But really, where are you? Are you a driver? Are you a walker? Are you riding? Are you a pilot? Where are you really at, honestly? Because once you do grasp that, you can see what you have to do to shift. So if you take this quiz, it'll tell you kind of where you're at based on a couple questions. That'll also give you some ideas of what you got to do to shift to the next level.
That's awesome.
I love that, because I'll tell you that what we've discovered is that nobody succeeds alone. There's this idea that people are self-made, that they can do it on their own. Nobody succeeds at a high level alone. And to go fast, you can go by yourself. But if you want to go far in life, an old ancient proverb, you go together. Like, you literally find the people that are going in that direction and you join them. And if you don't, what ends up happening is that you just get exhausted. You know, Anthony's metaphor of traveling to Florida. You get detoured. You're on Route 66 and you make many, many stops and never meet that destination. It's a perfect example.
Yeah.
Well, that's about all the time we have for today. It went by way too fast. Anthony, will you join us again another time?
Yeah, just have Rick reach out, man, whenever you guys want. I'm around. I got a weird schedule, but I'll make time for you guys.
Well, we would love that because I know we're just scratching the surface and you have so many things, wonderful things to say that we all need to hear right now. So thank you. Your journey is so incredible and inspirational. And we can all take away something that life is hard. Everyone has something, but it's what we do with it. And so thank you for showing us that. So this is a unique season for each one of us to follow Rick. You can go to Rick Fuller Podcast and follow him on your favorite platform. Anthony, you can find him at anthonytrucks.com or slowergo.co. Is that right, Anthony?
Slowergo.co. Yeah, that's it. Simple.
Awesome.
Rolls off the tongue.
Absolutely. And I highly recommend that everyone who's listening go to his website, take this identity test. It will change your life. And we all need to change for the better and find our true identity and shift to where we need to be and where our potential is. So thank you, Anthony. So that's great. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. We hope you have a great day, and we'll see you next time.
Hey, thanks, Anthony. Thanks, Christina. Take care.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.